Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, whatever time you're watching this little video I have. I'm back. I'm excited today to bring in a fellow Roseau Ram, historic Roseau Ram. This gentleman played in a few state tournaments for the Rams, actually led the state tournament back in 78 and 79 in scoring. Also in that latter year, he ended up playing for Team USA in the World Juniors as an 18-year-old. Leading Team USA in points was 7. Had 4 goals as a high schooler, senior at the '79 World Championship. Then went on to play with a brother Neal, and at the University of Minnesota. Was considered one of Minnesota's top high school players and #1 college recruit in '78, '79. Had an amazing 130 goals and 130 assists for 260 points in 3 years of high school hockey. That's pretty crazy, and it's wow. We had a heck of a line with him and brother and Butsy Erickson there in Roseau, Minnesota, and going on to play at the University of Minnesota this first year pretty well, but the second year, I believe it was 106 points. I don't know if that's been topped or tied since then, but amazing couple of years at the university. Considered one of the top 50th greatest players at University of Minnesota hockey history, part of the Legends of Ice that they did a tribute to in 2001, and also named one of the top 50 greatest players at WCHA history conference in February 2002, and also elected into the USA Hockey Hall of Fame in 2007. He had played a 12-year career for 5 NHL teams. I remember mostly when he played with the Colorado Rockies and the New Jersey Devils. When I say Colorado Rockies, folks, I don't mean the baseball team. I mean the hockey team, which moved on to become the Devils franchise. Then hopped around a little bit with the North Stars, Quebec Nordiques, and the Leafs, and finished up with the Jets, retiring from hockey in '92. A great two-way forward, 700 plus games in the NHL, as well as a plethora of world championships and such. Played with his Team USA, which we'll talk about. So just a lot of different things about this gentleman that, and when we're talking hockey, Minnesota, that is amazing. And glad to know him and glad to have played in the same town as him. After him, of course. And by the way, also played a little fast pitch when he played for Team Polaris in Roseau. So I'm very excited to bring in and talk a little hockey with Aaron Broten. Aaron, come on in. Thanks for doing this. Good to see you this morning. How you doing today?
I'm doing fine. I'm at the lake hanging out, so things are good. Life is good.
Great place to be at the lake, and then you're right around the corner, hunting camp, because it's right about that time of the year that we're doing this morning. So literally with a cup of coffee here. So, when I talk to everybody I've interviewed here, Aaron, we all start. I go back to where it all started, and to me, it started in two places. When I think about Roseau hockey and anybody I've talked to or played with. And that, of course, is I'd like to get your memories on two places. First of all, obviously, I throw this up. That's Memorial Arena, and then it's changed since when you or I were back in Roseau, of course. The North Rink, it's really gotten done phenomenal things at that place. Can you talk a little bit about growing up and playing in those two facilities before we jump into anything else?
Well, you were true. It's not the same North Rink as it was before. It was a pretty beaten up place and pretty cold. Now it's nice and new and just different. The Memorials had a couple facelifts, but the North Rink was a special place. It's where we grew up playing hockey, and we practiced there early morning, and as soon as we could get back there after school, we were back there, and we spent as much time as we could there, and went home at whatever time at night, probably 8, 9 o'clock at night. But we could, there's usually a couple practices after school, but then you had open hockey from maybe 5 to 9 or 5 to 10. I don't even know what it was, but it was plenty of open hockey. And as you know, it was whoever showed up found a team. So some nights it might be 5-on-5, some nights it might be 10-on-10, some nights it might be somewhere in between. And there's a few stragglers that didn't want to play that just had to get out of the way. But I look back at those days and I think that's where you develop a lot of your skill playing hockey. When you're out there playing, like I said, whether it's 5-on-5 or 8-on-8 or 10-on-10, you've got to be aware of what's going on around you, and you got to move the puck quick, and you got to do a lot of things. And I think it's what would be a contributing factor to success later in life in hockey.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think nowadays you see too many. There's games at such a young level, and those that really improve and get that mentality, rink rat, is doing the things that, like you said, on the pond or in the North Rinks of the world around the state. So
Okay.
it's good memories in there. Good memories in there from everybody that I talked to. So I wanted to show a few things here. I want your thoughts on a few of these pictures because when we talk about the youth hockey back when we were younger and when you were younger, we if you didn't make the team, you'd have Saturday morning league and the Thursday night leagues. And I'm going to throw up a few pictures, see if I can pull a few here, and I want you to comment on a few. Let's see which one this one is here. This one there, if I recall that, by golly, that's KRWB Radio. I always get a kick of looking at this one when you're on this team because Scott Jensen, aka Junkie, as they call him, he's got the old what I call that look. Oh, look on that picture. And then
Yeah.
a couple other ones here. I think this one here, by golly, where's the other one here? There's Dick Dorwart
Dorwart
on that
Motors.
squad.
Yeah. Dick Dorwart Motors. Yeah.
That's a good one too. But
Yeah.
you look
Yeah.
at
Those were fun times. And like we spoke about before, it was like, there was only an A team. I actually played on, I think, the first squirt team. My brother Neal didn't play squirts. He jumped right into Pee-wees. And I think I played on maybe the first like traveling squirt team, but if you did not make any of the teams, there wasn't a B team or C team or whatever. You played Saturday morning league for the younger kids, Thursday night league for the older kids, and again you got split up into whatever 10 people on a team, and that was your hockey. And you could also go skate as much as you wanted, like everybody else, in your free time and try to get better. And typically those teams were coached by a parent or maybe the sponsor, like Dick Dorwart. There was the sponsor plus the coach, and usually they'd give you a little treat card or something for after the game if you could get something at the concession stand from the sponsor. And those were good memories, and I look back at those pictures and try to see who the people were and see if I can still recognize them. And a lot of them are super recognizable, but others are not recognizable as we age and we look at, man, who is that? Who is that kid? He's changed a lot, or I didn't recognize him, but others are, you're going to remember easily when you look at them. But fun times.
well, it's like 50 plus years ago, or in some cases almost 50, 60 years. So it's
I know
memory does escape us a little bit. And there's one, speaking of coaches, you talked about volunteer. I have to, and I must, if you can see this, folks, this picture here, the coach up in the upper left there, that's Newell.
Yeah, but look at how he's dressed. Look at how he's dressed. He dressed like he's coaching an NHL team. He's got I think he's got a tie on. I can't even see it that good. I got to put my glasses on. But yeah, that's my father, who didn't play hockey. Grew up on a farm, played basketball, never played hockey in his life. But again, he's a volunteer coach, and I don't know that he knew a whole bunch, but he did the job. He showed up, and that's about all he had to do was open the door. And I didn't open the door. Probably only looked like there was 8 people in that picture, so it wasn't much to do. Except maybe, yeah.
Rein you guys in though from being rambunctious, maybe having too much fun.
I suppose he cheered us on a little bit and chewed us out a little bit or something. I don't remember, but I do remember those pictures. I've seen them multiple times. My parents have, or my dad now has a pretty good scrapbook upstairs that has lots of old articles.
That's pretty neat looking at memories. I went down that rabbit hole looking through the papers and the pictures, and I'm like, I could have been there for hours upon hours. There was much history there in our community, Roseau. I'd like to get your thoughts on this too. When we talk about the North Rink and those Saturday morning and Thursday night leagues, how the game has changed so much. It's just I'm amazed and I'm almost disappointed where the kids now they're doing traveling at 12-year-old or whatever. They're all these travel teams, and it's like going. And I know in East Grand Forks, they don't, at the squirt level, I think I heard Coach Palmasino talking about this, that they don't even do, travel or teams until like January. They let them just play and practice and do the little things and try to learn the game instead of just throwing you right into the games. Um,
Hmm.
from that now to now, I mean, what are your thoughts? I know you're removed for quite a few years, but can you give me your opinion and your thoughts on how hockey has changed so much now since we were little?
Yeah, I can. I'm probably a little bit old school, and so you know, obviously, yeah, the game has changed and all sports have changed, but yeah, from when we were growing up, and they they travel a lot more now, practice a lot less. They don't have the availability of ice time that we had as kids to go uh, and either public skate or play open hockey uh, now, because the rinks are every hour is used up by a team, basically, and especially in the urban areas, where there's very limited ice time for people. There's outdoor ice, but that's iffy sometimes, and you don't get it till late in the year. But I guess, I mean, I would like to see teams practice more and maybe play less. It's a lot of cost, and it's a lot of travel and that sort of stuff for the youth teams now all over the place. So it would be that's just my opinion, but again, I'm a little bit old school in that. I kind of look back at the times when we played and say, hey, it worked out pretty good for us.
Absolutely.
And now it's a different story. So, and yeah, it's whether it's good or bad, it's, I guess, an opinion everybody's going to have.
Absolutely. I mean, there's always pluses and there's pros and cons to everything. So I just wanted your thoughts on that. And we're fortunate up north. When I was back home this past week up there, we got 3 rinks. The girls have their own rink, and Warroad over in Warroad, they're building another little small area rink, which you don't get that in the metro area. So ice time is there, but again, they're playing a lot of games at such a young level. So,
Yeah.
but moving on, I just had to throw those things up there and get your thoughts on that and pictures. But I wanted to throw up a couple gentlemen. In the youth, this guy right here, he was a big proponent. I mean, I looked up, he did a lot for me when I was playing goalie. He picked me up in early morning practices with this guy. What can you tell me about, your experiences as a youth around Dick? Um, did you play for him? Obviously, I think you did. So
Yeah.
give me
Well,
your feedback
I-
and memories of play with Dick
he was,
Johnson.
yeah, well, he was a legend of a coach, that's for sure. And I always tell people that, when we talk about Dick Johnson, is that I think, he was a Pee Wee coach, obviously, for however many years, but Dick taught us how to win. I think, and he was super intense. That having him as a coach, he was a tough coach, but he taught us how to win, how to be dedicated. Um, some of the things I don't want to say on the air that he would say, because they're in this day
Yeah,
and
you can
age.
say whatever you want.
In this day and age, they're not appropriate, probably, but that
Yeah,
it wasn't this day and age then. It was tough. It was not tougher. It was different
yeah.
back then. But he wasn't afraid to do what he had to do to uh, get you to play well, and he wasn't afraid to tell you that, or chew you out, or get his finger, like, bang,
Mills,
bang,
yes,
bang,
yes.
poking it right in your chest. Says, you moved it, I mean, he would be, move the puck, you get the puck to Neal, or you do this, you get, it wasn't, he wasn't political at all. It was like, I mean, he was set in his ways, but like I said, he taught us how to win. I think is what he taught us, how to compete and how to win is the biggest thing. And
And one of the things I know is you never were outworked, that's for sure. You made sure you were in shape. And
oh, definitely, you made sure you're in shape, and yeah, you did plenty of skating, and yeah, and on that North Rink, when you started doing laps and it was 30 below, and you
that's
switched to go the other way, you're going into the wind for a little bit. It was cold out there, so yeah, and if someone would get cold or something and they wanted to go off, and it'd be, well, then you get off the ice, you baby. He'd say, you go sit in the warming house, and you'd kind of, you know, uh, demean you a little bit, and that, I mean, to people, and then, which was different. That just what he did. He wasn't afraid to say, go in there and warm up your toes in, you know, if that's
Well,
when.
and like you said, it's a different era, different times, and the hybrid I mean, you got to be a hybrid now. I think when it comes to coaching youth and high school hockey, you can't. I wouldn't necessarily say baby the players now, but you got to learn how to deal with the attitudes and more importantly the parents. And I will leave it at Dick Johnson with this, and you may agree with this, is that one of the things he did as far as advice. I saw him being interviewed one time on when Rose was playing Warroad. I think it was Wally Shaver at the time. I was doing the interview. He has one last thing, Dick. What's the one piece of advice you would give for any up and coming coach right now in the youth? Wants to be a coach. He goes, well, don't let the unnecessary evils get to you. And I knew exactly what he meant by that
Yeah,
was the parents because
yeah,
oof, there are some out there that and I've dealt with it in the communities I've coached. But yeah, you can't let them get to you because
yeah,
it's just ridiculous how now they're so demanding. And little Johnny
yeah,
should be playing in the NHL at age 12. It's just kind of crazy. But
yeah. I used to tell
Dick,
people when I coached that my favorite team to coach would be the team from the orphanage. So, which would make life
I
a little bit
I
easier.
will have to.
So,
That's a line I'll have to remember, Aaron. I'll
yeah,
remember that when I talk to that. That's a good one.
well,
I'll probably have to steal that from you sometime. So
yeah, you can
thanks for
have it.
mentioning that.
You can take it.
That's good. So, well, let's move on a little bit. We talked about the youth they're playing in North Rank and such, and some of those amazing young pitchers there playing Saturday morning and Thursday night leagues. To high school. You played on some amazing teams. I talked about the scoring you had as a high school player. Little unfortunately, couldn't get over the hump a few of those tournaments. But you had amazing, just the leading in the high school state tournament for scoring in 2 years. When I looked at that, 12 points one year and 7 points another year. You played for two different coaches. I believe Abram was Abram your first coach there in high school, Terry Abram.
I don't know that I played for him, Terry
Okay, I
Abram.
wasn't sure.
I'm not sure. I
I,
don't think I did. I don't think I played for him.
okay,
Neal did as a freshman, I believe.
okay.
And
But
yeah, I don't. I think Gary Hogan's.
yep, I was
You
just
know
gonna
what?
pull up a
You
picture
know
of
what?
Hokie. Yeah, what do you?
I he might. I might have played JV. I played 1 year of JV.
Okay. Yep.
Uh, uh, which I look back on and say, I don't know. I,
Well, I was just about to say,
I'd never
people
played
sit here.
JV before in my life, right, Sid? So
Yeah,
playing JV
yeah.
was
I was
like,
gonna say,
you know,
like,
so
wow, yeah. I was gonna say, people that I didn't, I'll be looking back like, Aaron played, you played JV. I'm like, wow. A lot of people probably didn't realize that there was a year where you did. So that's amazing that you said that. But I did pull up Hokie here. I was gonna say, playing for him, and he guys had some great years and just couldn't go over the hump. And looking at some of these teams, I want to reminisce a little bit. It was at 70, was it 77, 78, and 79, if I recall, three teams. I think,
yeah, yep,
we'll pull up the
yeah,
last team. We'll pull up this last one here. I think the last one here is 79. I think you're on this one here, if I recall.
yeah.
Yeah, there you are,
79.
fella.
79 would be my graduation year. So yeah, so Neal and Butsy would be gone, and
Yep.
Frank Burgraff and Scott Johnson and those guys like that. But so yeah, so this was our senior year. We're at Jimmy Pulowski and Mark Tangen, I think, as goalies. Mark
Yep,
Tangen
yep,
in there.
those two in the middle. Yes, he is right next to Jimmy there, but
Yeah,
I think on the far left is that Glenn Demota. Holy
yeah, it's
cow, does
Glenn
he look
Demota.
young in
Yeah,
that? Wow,
and
does he look young in that picture?
yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah, yeah.
But then
I'd have to put my glasses on to look at this. I think it's yeah, to see everybody on the team. But again, those were special years. You get a chance to play with the kids you grew up with, and for us, we were fortunate to be able to play in, or me anyway, 3 state tournaments. Like you said, we never won one. I've never won anything in my career that a national championship or a state high school tournament, or even at a youth level, uh, a, a state championship. So I guess if you measure things that way, things weren't successful, but that's not. Yeah, that's life.
yeah, yeah.
It's you got to look at the good things.
Well, to be able to play in three tournaments, I never played in one. I was the last guy cut in the '84 team that Paul played on when they won the state consolation that year. So just to say you're in three tournaments, and I look at some of these brackets. I mean, the last year though, this year was it that you guys didn't you take I don't, got beat there in Idina? That was unfortunate that year, but I think you took third in that year and was in the third one of the other years, 78, 70, 79? Didn't were you third place in both those years?
Yeah, two years we won either third or consolation. I don't know if we lost the first game or whatever. The one year we lost 2 games. I think we lost to Hill-Murray. But I have a kind of a hard time putting all those things in order. I gotta look back and look through a book or something to see, who we played the one year, who we got beat by. I know we got beat by Rochester John Marshall. I know we got beat by Edina a couple times and that sort of stuff. But yeah, I got to look back and see those on a ledger or on a thing like that to totally put them in order. But it just wasn't meant to be. We had the number 1 ranked team 2 years in a row, undefeated, going down to the state tournament, and you got to get a break here and there, and to win state tournaments. And if it doesn't happen, and you can't overcome it, which was what happened. You don't win, and only one team ends up winning. So
Yeah, it just tells you how difficult it is to win the state tournament now. They got 2 classes, and even in A or AA, it's so difficult to win. You got, like you said, you got to have the right bounces, and that. And some of these games are so close, and it's
yeah,
amazing the talent now. But
yeah,
I will say this: going back at those tournaments, there's 2 things I wanted to comment on, and I know you mentioned JM. That was when Scott Lisi, I think, and the boys playing there. They had a wagon back then, and now that community has fallen from grace. I mean, I don't think they've been in the tournament in years, and they've even had to do co-op over there. And the other thing that I joke about, because Jimmy Crackcorn, his brother Carol, was the goalie for Edina that beat you guys, and he lives off that. I think he lives off that. I see him when they do the showcase and stuff. He's still playing videos from that tournament. I mean, he's
sure,
done well for himself, but
yeah,
definitely use that victory over you guys. Use it to his benefit, and really, I'm good for him. But he's done well as a coach, Tony Gustavus, and that. But I had to bring up those 2 things because
yeah.
I do remember JM that one year they won it. They were so good. And now it's just almost sad to see how far they've fallen from grace back in the 70s, because they were really good. It's such a big community, but just shows you times have changed with hockey and things
Yeah,
change.
yeah,
I think
yeah. There's a few programs that have gotten worse or even disappeared, and some that have kind of established, and others that have kind of really blossomed, like Moorhead or something. Would be one that's really blossomed, and they're a perennial power now. Back when we played, we would beat them rather handily, but they've obviously numbers help, right? I mean,
yeah.
when you've got 80 kids in a program versus 22, you got
Yeah.
a better chance of having a good team.
And you mentioned the number 22, and that's actually what's on the Roseau program this year. So the numbers are really down for a community like that, which is hard to believe. I was talking to that coach last week, Coach Lund. But so, yeah, moving on from the high school, I mean, obviously there were some great memories and some tough memories there. But I remember watching you as a kid and watching you guys. And I got to throw up, I found this online. This was a really cool picture. I thought that the high school, it showed you as a North Star. You just had a couple copy with them, but I see the Gopher picture, and then you a young picture there in high school. I mean, that's a pretty cool picture there. The Minnesota Legends. I don't know where this guy got it, but I really thought that was a unique picture. But moving on from there, like I said, the high school to the left picture was the University of Minnesota, and playing there. And I think Buto was your coach, if I recall. But you guys, at first you had an excellent year, and that second year, holy cow, Aaron, what was I think it was 106 points that year. Um, I don't think anybody, and maybe I'm wrong, I have to do my research, but has anybody ever capped up? I know that Bonnet had some great years there, but has anybody ever beat that as a University of Minnesota Gopher since you did that back in the day?
Oh, that record's still standing. It's whatever 45 years maybe or something. So I think Pat Micheletti had 94 points one year or something, and so yeah. But that record still stands. Probably I think my freshman year, that record still stands too. That's scoring record for my freshman year, which was 70 some points, I think, was in my freshman year. So, yeah, 2 pretty good years of college hockey. Obviously, Neal joined us the second year back from the Olympics, which was kind of fun. And kind of one of the interesting stories of that is that the first game back from the Olympics with the Gophers was the Hall of Fame game up in Eveleth. I don't remember who we played, but we scored. I think we scored 6 goals. The Gophers did, and Neal and Butsy and I had all of them. So, and we were playing together as a line, but we never did play as a line the whole season. They broke us up, and I played center, and Neal played center, but it was that year we ended up losing to Wisconsin in the national championship again, falling 1 game short, and had beat them a few times during the season. So probably was the favorite going in, but it didn't happen again. So we move on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the thing. Move on. But I just, looking at those teams, I mean, wow, come up a little short.
Yeah.
The Badgers, and speaking of the Badgers, and when you played, it was the WCHA, and now it's the Big Ten.
Yeah.
I think that was the worst thing that they could have done, was to broken up the WCHA for college hockey. Your thoughts on that? Because there's some nasty rivalries back in the day. The Badgers and the Sioux, I will call them the Sioux. They're still the Sioux to me.
Yeah.
And a lot of true Sioux fans, Don Ross will tell you that too. They're still the Sioux. But can you talk about some of those rivalry games? I mean, those games had to have been just, back in the day, just rough and tumble, some of those games.
They were, and I think college hockey has kind of gone the way of a lot of other college sports. It's follow the money now, and so the Big Ten is using their conglomeration to make more money. But yeah, back when it was the WCHA, there were a lot of heated rivalries. Obviously, none any bigger than Minnesota, North Dakota, and that was always a big rivalry. And we had good games against them. They had good teams. They had tough players. They typically had a little bit older players that had played a bit more hockey in the Canadian junior leagues, and so they would try to intimidate you a little bit. But Denver, Colorado College was good. Duluth, Michigan Tech, Michigan. Just a lot of really, really good rivalries in that WCHA. And I guess I'm old school, but in my opinion, they kind of ruined it a little bit by going to the Big Ten and in the other division, which I don't even know what it's called. I don't follow it very much. Something like that. So I would like to see it be back in the old way that it was before, but that probably will never happen for you and I, Sid. So.
No, agreed. I think you said the key phrase you mentioned there is something about follow the money, and that's exactly what's going on now in college sports, and hockey started that now as well. I don't know where the Gophers stand with that, but because they're struggling a bit this year compared to others. I look at some of those teams in the top now. You have Penn State and Michigan State, and they're all Big Ten. Well, what do they have? Well, I can't bring in Penn State because their football team's bad this year, but they've got big money coming from their football programs, and you got a kid like this McKenna kid playing for Penn State. $750,000 they gave him in NIL money, NIL. I mean, it's just crazy.
Yeah, man. Where was I when that was around?
I was just gonna say, when you guys played,
and I don't understand how, like, even in football and whatever, how do they keep calling it the Big Ten? How many teams are in the Big Ten in football? It goes all the way across the country. When they show it on TV, it's like all the way from California to out to Penn State. It's more than 10, but
absolutely, I suppose they know that name.
I don't even know how that nil money works. I just see the headlines in the paper sometimes to where people are getting paid big amounts of money to use their name, image, and likeness. And again, that's life. That's how it goes.
Yep. I have to pardon me, but my mind still, sometimes I have things. Oh, what about that? You forgot to ask him this. I want to back up. Speaking of, because we're talking about NIL money and that now, and people moving around their company getting paid to play, but you can actually do that in high school too now in Minnesota. But going back, how when you played and when I played in high school in Roseau, and it was organically, kids were growing up in the community where there's a lot of different, especially in the metro area, hopping around. Well, I didn't do it here. I'm going to move over here. My family's going to move here, that move there. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? The way that's just gone mad too. I mean, you see, well, that kid played. Didn't he play in that system last year? No, he's playing over here or wherever, whatever school. I won't name names, but it's happening a lot too, where people move around.
It is, and I'm not. That's a tough one. I mean, I'm not I mean, I would put an X in the box that says I'm not a fan of that one. I wouldn't vote for that one, but I can see, people wanting the best opportunity for their kids, and that opportunity might be available somewhere else. But so I kind of sit on both sides of the fence there. But if I had to choose, I would like to see people play where they grew up. And I always, when I coached, I told the players, don't worry, if you're good enough, they're going to find you. Don't worry about that.
Yes.
You don't
And
have to go somewhere. You don't have to go somewhere to highlight your skills. If you're good enough, don't worry, they're going to find you, and they will. Someone will know that you're good, and you'll get an opportunity.
Agreed. Again, that's something too. I love that phrase because it's true. And not only you've said that, I've heard that from others, and it is the honest to God truth. Especially today's technology. There's so much video out there watching players throughout the world. It's crazy. And
Yeah,
that's what I do a little video now for the high school helping out. When I was coaching and also video, it's just crazy to get all these stats and see the video highlights and things of what players can and can't do. So, after playing there at the U, outstanding career, like I said, then you went on to the World Juniors, and I got to talk about that because when I saw that, you know, before you're drafted, you played in the World Juniors, and looking at the World Juniors, I had something there where you were the top 10 in scoring in that tournament, actually. Ahead of a guy by the name of Yari Curry, who had a pretty solid career for Edmonton when I was looking at that scoring in that year. So that experience being, as a young man, going over to play in Sweden for your country, kind of starting out that U.S. hockey tradition for yourself because you played in several, world championships as well.
yeah.
Can you discuss that a little bit, that year that you played in the World Juniors and the experience that you had there?
Well, we tried out in Colorado Springs in the summer that year. Uh, Neal and Neal and I spent the summer of that year. Uh, Neal was going to be a freshman at the U, and we live and Herb got us in Augsburg, the summer league there. So we stayed in an apartment on Seven Corners and played in the summer league at Augsburg. And I had a job at Bullseye Golf. Neal had a job at the U golf course. Then we went to Colorado Springs for the tryouts, and we both made the team. I was the only high school player on that team. Everybody else was either a college player or but I was the only high school player. And it was I got to look back at, again, like you do, to I try to look back and see the players, and some of the Russians. It was
Yeah, yeah.
Kasatonov and Krutov and Larionov.
Yep.
So when you look back at some of the players that played, for you mentioned Curry for Finland and other people for Sweden and those types of things. It wasn't as big as it is now, Sid, that tournament,
No, no, no.
but it was pretty big back then. But what was a bit disappointing was the next year when I was a freshman for the Gophers. Brad Buto didn't let us go. I was supposed to go play again, but he didn't let us go. So which is probably wouldn't happen nowadays, but it happened back then. So I would have had a chance to play in two of them, but it didn't happen. But it was unique.
Well, I look at that. I pulled it up here, Aaron. I'm looking at, you mentioned some names, and I look at this. I'm like, wow, these are some names. Vladimir Krutov had
Mm-hmm.
14. Anatoly Tarasov had 10. I
Oh,
can't pronounce the third guy, Vyacheslav Ryanov something. Then there was a guy from West Germany, guy from Soviet Union again, Alexander Yer, something with OV and then
yeah,
on the end again. And then you, Aaron Broten, USA, 18 years old, drafted by Colorado. You had 7 points that year, 4 goals and 3 assists in 5 games. So, I mean, I look at that, I scroll down and look at some of the names again that you were part of. I'm like, wow, that's something that, holy cow, in the world hockey, you're scoring as a 19-year-old, 18, 19-year-old kid, beating some of these long time names that like in Russian hockey and scrolling. I see Anton. There was one of the Stasnys that even played in that Anton Stasny that
yeah,
year as
Anton
well.
Stastny, yeah, Anton Stastny, yeah.
And then there was Igor Larionov, of course, you mentioned him, and then Tomas Steen, who had a pretty good career as well in
Yeah,
in the league. But yeah, so that's pretty amazing. I like to look at those things and look back and say, wow, you're part of a pretty good tradition there,
yeah,
to put on the old mantle that, hey, I played in this, and I also, by the way. I outscored Yari Curry, who had how many goals and when played
Yeah,
with Gretzky did, but
I
very
was
short.
fortunate to play in lots of world championships, but that just meant that we didn't make the playoffs or we got knocked out because, as my first number of years in the National Hockey League, we didn't make the playoffs. So you were available for the world championship. So it's a kind of a catch-22.
Yeah, but still to represent your country is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So when you were drafted, let's talk about the draft a little bit here. So I'm looking at, and then I know you most from these guys right here. The Devils, of course, were in the A, but
Yeah.
before they were the Devils, it was the Colorado Rockies. And I jokingly said, "No, folks, it's not the Colorado Rocky baseball team. It was the hockey team that was formerly Kansas City, I think. I think that was Kansas City. They moved to Colorado, if I'm correct,
Yeah,
and then
Kansas City
became the
Scouts.
Devils,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then became the Devils.
Yeah.
Who also, Mike Bumgarner played for the Kansas City Scouts,
Yeah.
another Roseau
Yeah.
alum there. Um, those years, first of all, playing in Colorado and then the struggle, then moving to New Jersey, and he played 5 straight. I think he played almost every game 5 years straight there. I think recently, last year, Dawson Mercer just beat your record for games consistently played for the Devils. So you're known to me as the Devil. Can you discuss, first of all, playing in Colorado? And he had I think a couple names in there. Like I think Lanny McDonald, he was there for like 10 games or something like that with there. He
Yeah.
had a
Yeah.
story.
I played with Lanny McDonald for a little bit. Well, Chico Resch was there
Yeah,
for a little bit. Steve Tambellini, Merlin Malinowski, a bunch of Brent Ashton played. Yeah. Well, first of all, making it to the NHL was, I mean, I don't want to say it was a lifelong dream. I mean, we didn't really dream of playing in the NHL. We watched Hockey Night in Canada as a kid growing up, and on Wednesday nights or Saturday nights, whenever it came on, Saturday night typically. But making it to the NHL just kind of happened, just as the next phase of playing. And when you get there, it's different because you go to training camp and there's 50, 60 people at training camp, and the roster is going to be 20 at the end. And when you're a rookie, you're like, am I good enough to play on this team? And then you kind of, as you play, you kind of realize, you know what, I am good enough, but to play, but you still need a little bit of a break, and you need a chance to play. And it's nice to play on a good team instead of a poor team. But so our team wasn't good for a long time. Obviously, you mentioned the franchise moved, so I played one season in Colorado. Well, I played the end of my college career. I went and there was 3 games left. I played 2 of them, I think, and then I played the next season. But I got sent to the minors to start with in Fort Worth, Texas, and I got called back up in Thanksgiving time, I think, and then played that season in Colorado. And then the following season, the team moved to New Jersey, which I think was 82, 83.
Yes.
And I was fortunate to play there for parts of until 1990 when I got traded back to the North Stars. But my best years were with New Jersey, and we had a team that was getting better each year as we were getting younger, high draft picks because we finished low in the league. I mean, we ended up getting Kirk Muller, who was a great player, but the pick before him was Mario Lemieux. So
Just missed that one, huh?
We were one spot away from getting Lemieux, but Kirk was a great player. I played with him for a long time in his own way. So it's fun to reminisce and look back on those times. They were a lot of fun. A lot of good players, and you look back at who you played against, and it's just fun to, with the information, like you said, out there now, just to look back and see, oh yeah, I played with that guy. It's hard to remember who you all played with, but I did play with that guy in some place.
And I look at that first year you played the full season there, was it 82, 83? You were actually the leading scorer leading scorer, and then would probably be like the 10th scorer nowadays. You had 55 points in 73 games that year.
Yeah, I led the Devils in scoring 2 years when I was there. And like I had 80 or 81 or some points in 1 year, and
yeah, that would be 87, 88, and 89 too.
Not a ton, but it was good. We had a good line and a pretty good team, and we were getting better. And yeah, then I got traded back to Minnesota, which I didn't really. I didn't want to get traded. I like New Jersey. Interesting fact is we owned a house in New Jersey, and we would rent it. We owned our place that I'm sitting in doing the interview now. We bought this in 1987, and we would come back to Lake of the Woods every summer, and we would rent our house out to one of the New York Yankee ball players, either a coach or a player, because they like to live in New Jersey across the George Washington Bridge from Yankee Stadium, and it would work out for us. So for about 3-4 years, we rented our house to a few different Yankee ball players. Mike Pagliarulo was one, third baseman. Lee Elia was a coach, and Tim Stoddard, we rented to him one year. So then in the fall, we'd pack the truck and we'd head back east to New Jersey, which was kind of nice.
Pagliarulo, I think he won a World Series with the Twins in '87 or '91, if I remember right. So that's kind of mention that name. I'm not being a baseball guy myself. That was kind of my game. But I'm just looking at the '88-'89 roster when that was a pretty good squad. You had McLean and Mahler, you mentioned, Sundstrom, Curvers, yourself. Shanahan played with it. Patty Verbeek, that ball of hate, the little guy. He was a tough little player. I looked at he had 47 points and then 189 penalty minutes. And then Big Jim Corn, Hopkins, he was a tough guy. So there was a pretty good squad, that year that you had. And
we had a good squad. I think that year Sean Burke came from the Olympic team as a goalie. So a big, good goalie. And I played most of my time, from the mid 80s up to 90 with Patty Verbeek and Kirk Muller. So, and then we had Mark Johnson. Mark Johnson played with Patrick Sundstrom and Johnny McLean. And then, we had a young Brendan Shanahan, really young. A lot of those guys said, as 17, 18-year-old players, McLean and Muller and Joe Sorella, Pat Verbeek, and they came, right out of junior hockey, and they were young and inexperienced. And so it took a little while for them to mature. And, the Devils traded Shanahan, and look what he turned out into, Three Stanley Cups and.
Yeah, he's a Hall of Famer. But I look at that, and that's funny. I just took a glance at the goaltenders. You mentioned Sean Burke. He logged 62 games that year. But, back then, Aaron, hovering around 89, 90%, that was actually normal, because it was a little bit higher scoring back in the day, I would say. Things have changed now with these. If you're not around 90 or 92, you're not, you're going to be in the minors. But that was pretty normal back in those days.
Sure.
But, So I got to throw this up. I just found something very unique. Maybe you can remember these or not. This was on some auction site actually, going back to the Rocky days. And tell me if you remember these, because this said Aaron Broten's gloves, rookie gloves. They're old Cohos. There's a picture down the corner there that briefly you see that there's the Rocky emblem. But I thought that was kind of unique.
I don't know where those come from. They didn't come from me. I don't recognize those. So, but they're the colors. They're the colors of the Rockies. Yeah.
And then there's that. I couldn't find a Colorado Rockies picture. I was trying to do. I tried to do a lot of due diligence, finding like pictures and stuff. And that's the closest they had there. Had little Rockies there in the lower left-hand corner with the gloves. But we were talking about you moved from the Devils. You were there for years, and then moved on, and ended up being with the North Stars. I'll throw up that picture of the North Star jersey there.
Yeah.
We're in the North Stars. Well, the Dallas Stars eventually. Storm Green still sucks in my opinion. That bugger.
Yeah.
But and then there's some other team pictures I wanted to throw up that's just you're known to me as a Devil, but towards the latter part of your career you were with another storied franchise no longer around. I wish they would be around. They deserve a hockey team. Is Quebec. Played in some pretty interesting cities. Quebec City, Toronto. A brief stint there, and of course with Minnesota. And the Devils and that. So the experiences, the latter part of your career, moving on and playing with some of those other squads, just to be in that. Quebec had been an interesting city. I'll be a short stint there, but in Toronto.
Quebec was a beautiful city to play in, and I got a chance to play just a brief bit with Guy Lafleur, and Guy assisted on my first goal in Quebec. I got the puck. Guy assisted on the first goal, so I got the puck with the tape on it that he signed and stuff. And Joe Sakic was a young player there. So, you know, you just get a chance to play with some Hall of Famers that, you know, one was at the end of his career, one was at the beginning of his career, but it was fun. It was for a very short period of time. That was kind of a unique experience too, because I got traded back to Minnesota in 1990, and I played that half a season with Minnesota, and then in the fall, after training camp, we played our last exhibition game in Winnipeg, and Mark Tenorti left the penalty box at the end of the game to join a fight, and he was suspended for the first 5 games of the season. But Pierre Pagé was the GM of Minnesota when they traded for me. Pierre Pagé was fired, and Bob Gainey came in for the North Stars that summer. Pagé went up to Quebec. So when Tenorti got suspended, Bob Gainey wanted to pick up another defenseman to start the season. So to do that, he had to take someone off the protected list. He took me off the protected list. Pagé picked me up in Quebec. So I moved. I had either had to quit playing or go to Quebec. So I went to Quebec, which, you know, we weren't excited about, but we're like, well, this will be a good experience maybe for the kids. But it was just short-lived. It was, you know, a little over a month, and then 3 of us, I think Lucien Deblois, myself, and Michel Petit were traded to Toronto for Pearson, a couple other players. And then I played in Toronto for a short period of time. They got a new GM. Cliff Fletcher came in, and there's an old saying that we used to in the NHL that a new broom sweeps clean. So when a new general manager would come on board, a lot of times they'd get rid of some of the players. You still there?
Sorry about that. I was hitting the back button. I was looking at stuff, and I got fat finger syndrome, Aaron. I apologize. Yeah. I'm like,
so yeah, I bounced around a bit at the end of my career, but I got a chance to play with a lot of unique players. You know, Keith Tkachuk in Winnipeg, and you know, great players in Toronto. North Stars obviously was a highlight for me to play in Minnesota with my brother Neal, and you know, even in Quebec with Hall of Famers there.
Well, yeah, I looked at that roster. The brief stay ahead there: Sakic, Sundin.
Yeah.
You mentioned Guy Lafleur.
Yeah.
And just, you know, even Nolan, he was a character. I mean, Nolan. Yeah, I mean, just the fact that you're able to play with these guys in a community itself that really, I think, should have a hockey team now. But Canadian dollars, a lot of different things going into that now to do that. But I wanted to throw this up, and we talked a little bit about, you know, the playing in the Toronto, playing and finishing up with the Jets and stuff, and moving around towards the end of your career. But I saw, you know, a couple things that, you know, I'm just going to throw up a random picture from when you played in the Worlds. I think this one here, I don't know which year this is, 85 maybe. But being able to represent the United States, and then an action picture here over here, and checks there. But more importantly, the one that you and I talked before we got on here that I thought was pretty cool, and I want you to discuss this a little bit because the story behind it's kind of unique, was this gun right here.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that? Because I think, to me, you know, finishing up and being able to play with your brothers and your father at that tournament, can you tell me the backstory like you were telling me before, and just discuss that, because what an experience for all 3 of you guys and your father.
Well, that tournament took place in Klagenfurt, Austria. I think it was in '97, but it was a qualifying tournament for to get the U.S. back into the A pool. They had fallen out of the A pool the previous year because they didn't finish high enough, and so it ended up that the tournament was early in the spring, and typically they take NHL players that are not in the playoffs or have lost out in the first round. But the tournament was too early for that to happen that year. So USA Hockey contacted some recently retired players. I had actually been retired for 5 years, but my brother Neal had just retired, and Paul had only been retired for a couple. So, it was Joe Mullen and Mark Johnson and Neal and Paul and myself and, a few other older players, and then a few younger players. Jason Blake was one of them, who played for North Dakota. But we went over to Klagenfurt, and Neal and Paul and I all got invited. So we took my dad with us, and we spent 2 weeks over there playing in that tournament. And lo and behold, we ended up winning it and getting the U.S. back in the A pool. But it was just one of those things that you never think is going to happen, that you're ever going to get a chance to all three play together in a competitive environment like that. I had played with Neal in the NHL with Minnesota, and Neal had played with Paul in Dallas, but we had never all three played on the same team until that point. So it was kind of cool to be able to play in that tournament and to have my dad there too. My mom must not have wanted to go. She didn't like to leave the house too much, so she must have stayed home for some reason. I don't know, but it was fun.
What an experience. I mean, I just had to throw that up because to be able to play with your brothers, and see, Klagenfurt, Austria, or whatever. That's where the Rosses played, I think, down, and Gary played actually professionally for a couple of years, and the history over there in Europe. But just at the tail end to be able to play with your brothers, and what a way to go.
Yeah.
That's some great memory, and that's why I wanted to kind of bring that up. So, well, I'm kind of winding down. I want to try to keep it within, I try to keep it under an hour because I know you got to get going too, and
Yeah.
there's just so many stories I could bring up. But I will leave it with this. There's a couple different things that I always ask, no matter who I talk to, Aaron. If you had some young athlete, female, male, whatever it may be, come up to you and say, Mr. Broten, can you give me any advice you would give to a young athlete? They say, hey, what can I do to be a better athlete, better person? I want to play at the next level, whether that be college, junior, maybe, semi-pro, pro, whatever, because everybody's got aspirations of playing at a higher level. But what would you tell them as a young athlete, whatever age they may be, coming up to you and asking you for advice? What would be some of the pieces of advice that you give to a young athlete right now in today's day and age?
Well, I mean, I think it's you gotta put a lot of time in, whether if you want to make it to a higher level, whether it's golf or hockey or basketball or whatever. So you can't expect to do it going an hour a day, 3 days a week. So it's a commitment. There's a big commitment that way, and you also got to love it. You got to love what you're doing. I think that's probably more important. I mean, we loved playing hockey when we were kids, and we played it all the time, and we just played it for the love of the game. So you got to play it for the love of the game, but then you also got to, you got to put time in. But time shouldn't be looked at as being something hard. I mean, we didn't look at time as we didn't have enough time. We got kicked out. Sometimes it's like, you got to go home. You got to come home. You got school tomorrow. So it was when you really love what you do. It's not work, right? It's not work. It's fun. So love what you do. Work hard at it, and let the chips fall where they may. And if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, don't have it be because you didn't put the time in, or you didn't love it, or some other reason. But that's what I would tell people.
No, and I think that's some well advice because you don't get good just by 1 hour a day. Practicing
No,
them just 1 hour a day. You got to get
right?
better by doing the things when coaches aren't, when they're not being watched. It's what you do away from the rink, or away from the ball field, away from the court, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Working and trying to hone your game. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of kids, obviously, you see it with the elite because they're doing it a lot.
Yeah.
But as a group, that's when I talked about the North Rink aspect there. And I mean, that brings back some memories of a little guy when I was, learning how to skate and going out watching you guys. And that's where you get better, doing those
Yeah.
extra things. And, I will be remiss. I think I talked about, but I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about, because to me, you're one of the most athletic athletes. I mean, a great athlete, not just hockey. I mean, you could do it all. I got to bring up, memories a little bit escapes me, but when we played fast pitch together back in the day for Team Polaris.
Yeah.
You were a hell of a fast pitch player and play baseball too. So I don't know if you know memories of that, but back in the day, you had guys that would play summer fast pitch. You had Dale Smedgmo, former NHLer.
Yeah.
Alan Hangslaven over there in Ward was pitching
Yeah.
back in the day. Some really good athletes, and they played. There were some pretty tenacious battles back in the day. And I know you as a leadoff hitter, Man, you were tough. Left-handed hitter. I mean, you had that advantage, like myself, batting left-handed, but man, you were quick and good, and almost like you taunt people. You were that good of a ball player. Any memories from playing other sports in Roseau growing up? You and I both played for Nord Pasture,
Yeah.
and then played fast pitch. Can you talk a little of that before you get you going here?
Yeah. I mean, I remember playing fast pitch, against the guys you talked about. The team would come from Warroad, and they had a bunch of good players, and it was really competitive. The like you said, we had Carson Hedlund that pitched, a bunch of other great players that played. Gary Rosson played. Gail Olson played center field, and they were competitive games, and it was fun to play. And I enjoyed playing baseball. Most of my friends, that I was close to in hockey played golf. Neal played golf. Butsy played golf. I played a lot of golf too because I grew up a block from the golf course. But I liked playing baseball. So that was a fun game to play, and I enjoyed that. But I played a lot of golf too. We played tennis. We just played sports, and I fished all the time in the river too. So I don't know that my days were full of different things. It was different back then than it is now. I mean, I would go fishing a lot at the dam and fish the river, and then come back and go play tennis, and then go play golf, and maybe get a baseball game over by Pulowski's there, by where there's a dental office there now. We played there a little bit, and it was fun being a kid in Roseau. A great place to grow up, and a great place to go back to. And the summers were fun playing fast pitch softball. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah, I wanted to bring that up because today again, we'll wind down and call her quits, but you see a lot of kids specializing now. Not a lot of kids doing like you said. When I played four sports, and I'd run around and do different things with the guys in neighborhoods, and they don't do that as much anymore. It's more like year round, go, 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 go with one sport. And I don't like it, but it's different,
Yeah.
than when we were young, 50 years ago or better. So that's why I wanted you to talk about your experiences as a youth playing, not just hockey. You're known for hockey, but you were, like I said, one hell of an athlete that I want to point out, not just playing the sport on the ice. You were good off the ice and all the other sports too. So those are the memories I remember.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's coming up on an hour. That's kind of where I like to keep it at. And I really can't thank you enough for doing this, Aaron. It's appreciative. You taking the time to do this morning. I'll put this up, and I'm sure we'll get a lot of people that are going to watch this just because it's good to spread the history of 218 hockey, not just Roseau. Obviously, being from Roseau, we try to specialize in getting people from Roseau, but the Warroads of the world and the Midgies, and trying to go to Baudette and get people and just talk about, because the history is deep in the 218 area code for players up there. And I thank you again for doing this. It's been my pleasure to talk a little bit, memories of you and playing days back in high school and college and pro and internationally. And again, I want to thank you, Aaron, for doing this today for me.
Okay. Thanks, Ed. It's been a pleasure.
All right. It's been Aaron Broten, folks. Appreciate it. So long, everybody. Stay healthy.